Welcome to Aviation Careers Podcast. My name is Carl Valeri, and in this episode, we're going to talk about the rumors and the spouse getting started at 39 years old. But before we begin, I have a special announcement. If you remember in other episodes, I was trying to figure out a good way to look into the future of aviation. Well, finally, I mentioned I might be getting something that will help us. And I finally did. And it's here. It's my aviation crystal ball. And for those on YouTube, you can see that right now. Here it is, my aviation crystal ball. If you notice it's blue, the sky is blue. It does change color sometimes, I've noticed, and I'm getting used on how to use it. But it was just a purchase I made offhand. But I will say though, I do now have a crystal ball. So in the past, I've told people I don't have a crystal ball. Now I do. So this is my new aviation crystal ball. It only can predict the future of aviation and aviation careers. So again, if you have questions, feedback at aviationcareerspodcast.com or aviationcareerspodcast.com/contact, and we'll discuss those answers. And also, I'll look into the crystal ball and we'll figure out some of the answers to that question. I hope you enjoy the new friend we have here. And by the way, if you're going to Sun and Fun, come by, and I may have the crystal ball with me. By the way, that thing is heavy. My gosh, that's as big as a bowling ball. It's about 30 pounds. And I don't know what possessed me to buy it, except for the fact that I wanted to bring you folks better insight into the aviation community using my new crystal ball. But anyway, let's get started. We're going to discuss some airline schedules. Came in from feedback at aviationcareerspodcast.com. Don't forget to go to the YouTube channel. There's a lot of cool discussions that go on there, and it's really been wonderful. I've really been enjoying it because that seems like the best way for people to have a conversation. I don't really have a forum set up or anything like that. But also, people always ask, where do I get one of those free scholarships guides? Well, first of all, thanks to our patrons. You can go to aviationcareerspodcast.com/free to get one of those free scholarships guides. Those are given away by those patrons that sometimes only donate $1 a month. And $1 a month, that means they'll give away a scholarships guide within 10 months. Because when they get to $10, we give away a scholarships guide. So if you're someone that wants to actually donate one of those scholarships guides, I'd highly recommend going out there to our Pay It Forward program. We use Patreon to do that now. We've had other methodologies, but the great thing about Patreon for us is that at the end of the month, we see how much money we've collected, and then we give away that number of scholarships guides. So if we get $20, we give away 2 scholarships guides. And if you're somebody that wants to donate or become a sponsor of the podcast, go to aviationcareerspodcast.com/contact, and we can talk a little bit about that and maybe use one of your coupon codes. Also, if you want to find out more about those scholarships guides, say those coupons have run out because they're a limited supply, go to aviationcareerspodcast.com/scholarships. It's only $10. We update it every month. Thanks to Teresa. Teresa does a great job. She's actually our scholarship administrator, and also does a lot of things here as far as editing, etc. So big shout out to her for doing that. Anyway, on with the show. So let's read this feedback from one of the listeners here after watching a YouTube video. It says, "Hello, Carl. I recently came across your YouTube and love the content you're putting out. My question is regarding getting started at 39 and the rumors around the industry. I've dreamed of becoming a pilot since I was about 13 years old. I would fly to see my mom twice a year and couldn't wait to get to the airport to watch the planes. As I got older, I didn't really think it was possible for me to become a pilot until recently, when I started doing some research and realized there's financial support. This relit that dream in me about becoming a pilot. However, I'm curious about 2 things. I'm 39 years old and I'm married, no kids, none coming. During my research, I found quite a few comments about how poor the scheduling is, that is bidding, within the industry, and what you never get holidays off unless your seniority gives you those days off. I've also read some comments stating you are barely home and work far more hours than are advertised. I'm not afraid of hard work. However, I'm worried that if I do embark on this journey at 39 years old, how long will I need to really realistically look at barely being home? The reason this worries me is I don't want to put myself in a position where my wife ends up leaving, as that is something else I read, that divorces are high within the pilot realm. Thank you for all the information you put out, and I hope to hear from you. Well, gosh, I appreciate that content and also the comments there. So let's kind of dissect that as far as, I think it's great that you're looking at this now, and the fact that the industry is growing. That's another reason that we're able to have people enter this field at 39 years old, at 49 years old, at 50. Obviously, some of your expectations will be a little bit different as far as seniority wise and getting a better schedule. So talking about that part, when you talked about bidding and schedules, it's all based on seniority. And each position actually bids their own seniority. So, for instance, if you're a flight attendant, you bid within the flight attendant realm. If you're a first officer, you bid within that realm. And if you're a captain, you bid within that realm. And then within base. So there's the overall system. Then there's each base bids. And to make it simple, it's all based on your date of hire. And it's if you are very senior in a certain base, like the base that nobody else wants to go to. Say it's a lot of times in the Northeast, it's so expensive to live there. Unless you're from there, you may not want to be based there. Those are the bases which a lot of times go more junior. And in those bases, you might get the days off that you want. Something a lot of people do is they forego upgrading until they can actually get a good schedule. I'm an example of that. I waited about 9 years before I upgraded at my current airline. I waited a little longer at my last airline because I was enjoying my schedule. And going towards days off, and you'll never get the holidays off, etc., that's also a priority. Again, if you decide not to upgrade, if you work in a base that nobody else wants to work in, you can probably get some of the days off that you want. Are you never home for holidays? That's not true. For instance, I just changed my life a little bit in that now, instead of at the top 40% in the base I was in as a first officer, I'm now 70% from the top at my new base. And now, therefore, there's so many more people, 70% or above me, that actually can bid ahead of me for those days off, weekends off, that type of thing. I'm also a little bit different than most because I like to work weekends, so that actually helps me a lot as far as getting days off, etc. So as far as those rumors are concerned, yes, it's different than most other jobs. Look at people like servers, firemen, police officers, people in the medical field. A lot of those folks don't get the holidays off. But with that said, as you gain seniority, that's when you can build to get those holidays off. A lot of times you're hearing that from people that are more striving for moving up in their career with disregarding anything else in their lives. Maybe they'll upgrade to captain on a bigger plane to make more money and not be concerned at all about their schedule. So those are the kind of things we think about. Another thing, too, that I want to mention here as far as days off is also commuting. So if you live in base and you come home, you just drive home. If you don't live in base and you come home from your trip, you have to fly far away. That's going to take away from your time off. And we do get quite a few days off. Most people in normal jobs, I guess, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday jobs, they get those weekends off. So you're looking at least 8 to 10 days off per month in those fields. Normally, we get about 12 to 15 days off per month, and that enables us to be home longer chunks of time sometime, but then we may not be able to have the birthdays and the outings, etc. And, to your point, looking at my past airline, when I decided to upgrade to captain, I didn't really get to go to a lot of the family outings on some of those holidays because I decided, hey, I'm going to get some PIC time and forego some of that. So, yeah, that is something to be concerned about. Going back to your other question about people getting divorced, pilots being divorced. Actually, I kind of looked into this. There's a lot of different statistics out there, so I'm not going to go into everything, but it does show a high divorce rate in the different statistics that I've looked at in amongst flight attendants, actually, amazingly enough. Also a high rate, they were talking about, in hospitals and doctors and nurses, but other industries too. So it's not just specific to the aviation field. And one of the things that's quite interesting is a lot of people that have been in the military, they understand the challenges of someone going away for a long time. And I always compare it to that because I work with a lot of military pilots and folks that have been in the military. And you want to talk about going away for a long time? They go away for a long time. In 6 months at a time, or even longer than 6 months at a time. These people go on deployment for a really long time. Personally, I think the longest I went away was a couple weeks. 2 weeks at a time. And that's where we go to having a better schedule. When I was on reserve, I commuted to reserve, and that's, they talk about, it's horrible to commute to reserve because you're working more days. And so I would actually stay there on my days off and come home every other week. So that is a little bit more difficult. So really, as far as the marriage is concerned, it works out for some, it doesn't for others. I know that could be a contributing factor, being gone, but I see them, in other industries too. So I don't want, I'm not a marriage counselor. I help people move forward in their careers. So I'd have to say I'd have to defer to other people that are in that field. But no, for the most part, the feedback I get from most people that work in this industry is the cool thing is they get to go and maybe coach a team, et cetera. And going back to when I originally started in this, there was a gentleman that my dad had me go flying with. He was a retired United captain, and he talked to me about it. He says, I got to coach a baseball team on my days off, and I still got to fly. So yes, you can have those interactions with your family. So hopefully that's helped you a little bit there. The other question you had about being away and when can you realistically see yourself at home, I always tell people give yourself 5 years to 10 years to get to your ultimate aviation goal. And I know, in a year you can get the airlines, 2 years you can get the airlines some places. I don't like to look at it that way. I like to be very conservative in my estimates. So meaning that in 5 years you're going to get to where you want to be and you're settling in on a career 5 to 10 years. Because remember, you got to build the hours and that type of thing to get to, say, the major that you want. So you you hear about from pilots that the divorce rate is high. Interestingly, when I looked at my research, it's mainly amongst the flight attendants that's much higher there, which is kind of interesting to see that. Other things that you asked there's the thing about barely home and work a lot more hours than advertised. I'm not sure they advertise how many hours you work. So maybe I'm missing that part of it. We usually talk about days, and if you're going to be away for some days, then you might want to think about if you're working that day, you're working that full day. Maybe what they're talking about is like when I talk about 14 days off a month, you have those 14 days off, but those other days you're working. You're away from home. And maybe this is what they're talking about too. Say I have a plumbing issue at home. I have to get somebody else to help with that plumbing issue. I can't do it myself. Those are the kind of things. Say something happens back home. It could be very difficult. Obviously, if it's an emergency, and I've had that happen before, the airlines usually will fly you home. That's very rare, usually something that's a medical issue or something like that. But you have to set up a system where while you're away, your spouse or significant other can help out. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more color there. I don't see a problem with it at all. I like being away sometimes, and it is kind of fun to be home too. So I get kind of the mix of both of those worlds. My suggestion to you is if you want to be home more, live in base. And you're seeing that in this industry. It's the coolest thing that I've seen happen over the past 10 years is people are choosing airlines and they're also moving into those bases. So they're choosing airlines based on the bases, and they're also choosing airlines and looking at their bases that they might potentially want to go to, which is really exciting because I think that's terrific that we're able to keep the families closer. And just to add to that, in the corporate world, which I used to be in the corporate world, work for Fortune 100 companies, you would just go. IBM, I've been moved. You actually would move to the different projects. I've worked all over the place, and a lot of times I would go there and stay there. So at least with the airline world, I have an opportunity to get back and travel back using my travel benefits, which is actually terrific. What's going to happen in the future? Not sure. I may have to look at my crystal ball, though, find out what's going to happen in the future of the aviation industry. I will say this, though. There is a lot more in the aviation industry, a lot more thought about where people are based and about the individual and what brings them into the airline to stay in the airline from the employer's perspective. Part of that obviously is because we're having a tough time finding talent. So that's another reason they're doing that. So anyway, let's move on to the next question. This came from episode 345. It said, yes, you can become a pilot at 45 or older. The comment says this: it's never too old to enter the industry, but the time you've lost may mean you cannot make it through the seniority list at a large airline to the top earning spots. So you may have to manage your expectations from that point of view. I responded to that and I said, it's true, you can't make it to the top of the seniority list, but most of the time, if you have 12 years, most pay scales, they stop around 12 years. In other words, the most senior person on that pay scale is at 12-year pay, and then that's it. I love this comment, though, by the way. It really is interesting when you're looking at pay. There's a lot of things that go into pay, okay? So making it to the top of the seniority list, making it to captain, I think that's what this person's really talking about, is making it to being a senior captain. Yes, that may be true, that it all depends on how old you are and your data hire, because everything is based on your data hire. But let's look at it this way. Earnings potential can be very high. Say you stay as a first officer and you become a very senior first officer, you may wind up getting those trips that are very efficient and pay more money. Not all trips pay the same. For instance, say you fly 1 day for 3 hours, and the person next to you is flying 8 hours for that same day. Well, obviously that person, because we get paid by the hour, is going to get paid more. Another cool thing is we get a minimum pay per day at most airlines and a minimum pay per trip. And those are the kind of things, and duty. So those are the kind of things you have to learn about. We could probably drill down, that's a bigger video than right now, but understanding how soft time works, and we talk about that a lot, is they'll get paid more because of soft time. Soft time is the time that you get paid for not flying the airplane. A good example is deadhead pay. If they have to move you, that's soft time. Other things are minimum duty day pay. Say your airline pays you 5 hours per day, and you fly 1 hour in that day, that means that you get paid 5 hours for just doing 1 hour of work. Now, why is that important? Say you're the type of person that likes to pick up trips and fly more often. That's flight time is the 1 hour. So you have a lot more flight time available, because remember, the FAA limits how much flight time we have in a day, in a month. And that's something that enables that person, to build more hours, is just by working their schedule properly using that soft time. So yes, you can make it to the top of the pay scale. You can make it to the top of the pay scale both as a first officer and a captain, depending on your age. Have to give yourself 12 years. But you may, and I think this is what they're really talking about, you may not make it to that top pay because of the fact that you don't have the opportunity to get those really high paying trips. And also you may not be able to make it to the specific airplane that pays the most at that airline. Say it's the 777, you get stuck on the 737, those type of things. But in general though, pay is kind of somewhat even. Another cool thing, if you look at one of the highest paying or the highest paying from the numbers that I've calculated, UPS, the cargo carrier, they're 121. If you look at their numbers, those guys get paid the same no matter what airplane. So that's kind of cool, and I'm pretty sure that hasn't changed. So I haven't looked it up in the past week or two, but so that's kind of interesting. So it's, looking at it just from that pay perspective. So I hope that helps. By the way, I got another response to that video, and says, and this is interesting. It's from the UK perspective. It says, Aviation Careers Podcast, best of luck. I'm talking from a UK point of view, where it plays out very differently. 250 hours, first officer goes to a low-cost captain at 3,000 hours on a 737. Quick promotion, but salary stops at about 100,000 pounds. Seems a slow burner in the U.S., but ability to make $3,000 to $4,000 but at a midlife age with companies like UPS. I'm lucky I got into this at 20. It's his situation he's talking about. 757 captain at 33. Well, that's 11 years right there. 13 years, excuse me. And then 787 captain at 42. 787 check captain at 44. 747 captain at 50. Didn't expect that. Well, you wouldn't expect it if you didn't try, right? So I think that's terrific that the person actually tried. Kind of proves my point is that you need to be in it to actually to make money. I know this is over a 30-year period we're talking here, but a lot of people are moving up very quickly at the airlines. I mean, we see people with, look at Delta. I mean, you have some really, really low-hour pilots flying as captain at Delta. I think it's terrific that these folks are able to go right from the regionals and get right in and start and become a captain like in 1 year. And it's happening throughout the industry. 1,500 hours. A lot of people are 1,500 hours getting hired by major airlines flying 737s and Airbuses. So it's pretty cool. And a lot of it has to do, again, with training. But with a median income of about $200,000 a year, that's, again, I like to be conservative. That's what I would look at as your expectation at an airline. And if that's good for you, then I would consider this as a career. If not, maybe something else that might pay more. If it's just about the pay, though, you're not going to be very happy. And I've always said that. Make sure you do something because you enjoy it, and make sure you do something that will enable you to support your family. I think most people will be able to afford afford to live on this salary of $200,000 median, even $100,000. The problem is in the aviation field, I think, is that it takes so long to get there. I think that's the problem a lot of people have, and that's why it's so challenging. So make sure you check it out. Make sure you check out a lot of the other videos I had as far as what you have to expect at certain ages. 39 years old, say at 49 years old, you're at your career goal. You still have quite a few years to go after that. Check out some of my resources if you're someone that's looking into getting into this as a career. People ask about the resumes. We have a resume course that's in the side bar of the screen. I have resources out there that help you. Say you want to go get your FCC, Restricted Radio Telephone Operators Permit, which you'll need when you become a pilot. Look at the resources page. You want to try to get in this field and actually pay for your training? Check out our scholarships. And we have people that have been paying it forward, and I hope you'll try to pay it forward too. Just go out to our Patreon account. If you just donate $1 a month, after 10 months, we'll give away a scholarship because of you. And I think that's terrific. And I look forward to listening to more folks bring in questions so we can help them out. But if it's something that I may not be able to talk about here on the podcast, go to aviationcareerspodcast.com/coaching. I put my calendar out there so you can see if I'm busy. I usually book out about a month in advance, sometimes 2 weeks out, that type of thing. But if you want one of those free scholarships guides, aviationcareerspodcast.com/free. That is from all of our patrons. A big shout out to our patrons. Thanks so much for what all of you do. I need to start putting your names out here, thanking you individually on the podcast, because without you, these people would not be able to reach their aviation dreams. And those people are you possibly listening or watching right now. Maybe you've been able to get yourself a scholarship because of one of those wonderful people that have given away a scholarships guide for free. And by the way, we keep it really low price-wise. It's only $10 for 1 year access. We update it every month thanks to Teresa. But most importantly, in this career, always keep doing your research. I'll keep trying to give you some analysis into the industry. Of course, I have my crystal ball here. I'm hoping that this crystal ball will help you out. Again, I've always said I don't have a crystal ball. Now I do. Maybe this crystal ball, it's blue today. Maybe it's I'll have a better chance of predicting the aviation future. It only tells the future of aviation careers and the aviation field, so I can't predict other things like the stock market, so don't ask me for stock market advice. Guys, I really appreciate your listening, but do me a favor. After you stop listening to this or after you stop watching this, don't stop there. I think it's important in our lives that when we're trying to do something so difficult and we see such a large hurdle to get over, like getting our certificates, getting our ratings, applying to the airlines, we sometimes get discouraged. But, everybody made it to where they are by this one simple method. They did it by taking one step every day to move forward in their career and their lives. And that's what I want you to do. Take one step today, right after you finish this, call a friend, watch another video, listen to more podcasts, go out and study one of these books that are on my recommended reading list. But do something today to move forward in your career and in your life. We'll talk to you next episode. Safe flying out there.